very happy to bring back to Naturally New York's virtual webinar series our board member and founder of Sircle Media, Adam Brown, who is accompanied with Sarah Hayden. They're going to be giving us all the tips and tricks of your social media needs. And of course, we are happy to answer any questions. We're going to save them towards the later end of the chat. So just later end of the call. So please drop them in the chat and we'll be sure to address them later in the call. So without further ado, Adam, please take it away.
Adrian, thank you so much for having us back. And this is going to be a new series that we're going to do at the beginning of every quarter. So this being the first one, we'll be back again in a few months. And the idea was to talk a little bit about what to be thinking about in the now with the ever-changing social media landscape. It's very hard to keep up with changes internally. So our strategy team that's run by Sarah, who's going to do a lot of the talking today, is always on sort of the frontier of what's coming. What are the things you need to be thinking about? What are the tools that will benefit? And this is all mainly around CPG and beverage brands. So hopefully I'm in the right place. But I think anyone that's in marketing, using social networks, anyone that's selling to a customer and trying to understand how to use platforms, this can be relevant for. We did a recent presentation in partnership with SFA that was similar, and we went through it relatively quickly. What I think is very unique and where the magic happens is in the Q&A. So please ask questions. Those questions will be relevant to today's audience since they're being asked in real time. And I encourage you to do so and just get increased value above and beyond our presentation. So let's jump in.
Cool. So we are going to jump into 3 hot takes on where to focus your social media energy right now. And I'm going to start off with content planning. So when it comes to thinking about your content, vertical style video content is really where we're seeing a shift when it comes to brands and the types of content that we think you should be creating and posting. So as we continue to closely monitor changes in the algorithm, we've seen more and more focus around vertical style video content, and we're seeing platforms across the board really use a lot of this content and shoot this content on an iPhone. And it comes off as just super relatable and helps humanize brands. It initially got popular on TikTok. I'm sure as you saw, that was kind of just where it all started. And then, of course, all other platforms sort of married that idea. And it's continued to spread to other platforms, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, becoming increasingly important. So just a few reasons as to why you should really be thinking about video content when it comes to your overall content strategy. One is that Facebook Reels now includes a search engine for users to discover Reels at the top. And there is a full screen video player. So again, you have that scrolling kind of same mannerisms that you would have on TikTok. And all videos posted to the app will expand to the TikTok-like vertical format. Instagram has also enhanced its search engine to make content more discoverable on the platform. So again, they're pushing for you to really consume Reels when you search. YouTube, as I mentioned, is still pushing YouTube Shorts, and it remains kind of the #1 place right now for organic reach and one of the only platforms that has yet to become a pay-to-play platform. And then finally, Pinterest is continuing to enhance its video pins feature for both organic and paid. So as you can see, all platforms are really moving towards this vertical style video content, and they have been for quite a while. Next, just some examples of the types of content we recommend if you're wondering kind of where to start when it comes to vertical style video content on an iPhone. Which we recommend to live across all platforms, as mentioned on the previous slide, would be product-focused content, usage, and retail support. So showcasing what sets your product apart, offering practical usage information, and indicating where it can be purchased. Kind of all valuable content for your consumer. And then when it comes to pre-planning your content around innovation launches, we like to share this type of strategic pre-planning, which can be great for a new product, a new packaging, or even a new retail push, or it can be a combination of the 3. So we love tapping into this option, especially for innovations. As you can see on the right, we have recent examples on the top from a brand, Ultima, that launched a Moctini line so that the first thing the user saw when they landed on their feed was this 3-grid image across their Instagram page. So it was the first thing they saw. It shared their new innovation. So it was getting consumers to understand we have this new product that we just launched, but then it's the first thing that they were seeing. So they didn't have to scroll and kind of search through it. They didn't have to be served as an ad. If they landed on the page, that's what they were going to see. And it was kind of their number one key messaging at the time. And then on the bottom, kind of just branded messaging that they wanted to get across. And it's really nice that Instagram has this offering where you can pin those 3 posts to the top. It can be kind of like a nice visual like you see here, or it can be a way to share founder content, describe the product front and center. But we do really like this when it comes to an innovation or a product that you really just want your users to see when they first land. Jumping into collaborations, just wanted to touch on how collaborating with other brands for giveaways, recipes, and co-branded products is super valuable. So now more than ever, we've seen many CPG brands leaning into creative collaborations, both with other brands in the same space and with brands outside of the space to create exclusive products. As you'll see on the very bottom left, Crumble Cookies and Muddy Bites collaborated on a unique flavor. And then just participating in giveaways together. So on the right-hand side visual, you'll see just tons of brands coming together to reach a wider audience, and having people enter to win a giveaway. So both make sense for different reasons. And we've seen a lot of them work really well. And we just want to recommend that as something to consider when it comes to your brand and what makes the most sense for you. And when brands do collaborate, it can offer several benefits that contribute to success. So like I said, reaching a wider audience, hopping on trends and seasonality, and creating something super exclusive. I think that Crumble Cookies and Muddy Bites is an example of something really exclusive that gets users excited. The Crumble Cookie audience, and then the Muddy Bites audience kind of sees it, and then you have that nice overlap. So when promoting these collaborations on Instagram, you also have the ability to use the collaboration feature, which I'm sure you've seen. Visually on the bottom, you can see where it says Crumble Cookies and Muddy Bites. They kind of just co-collaborated on it, and it offers this like super power type collab that shows up on both pages, and you're pulling in both audiences to kind of come together. And it just will help increase overall reach. So we always recommend that when you have the chance that you're tapping into that collaboration feature, whether it's a giveaway, an influencer partnership, etc.
So retail velocity support is up next. And I just want to say on content, Sarah just covered a lot of ground. We talk about this every day, so it's like a rhythm, but for some of you, each one of those probably warrants some double clicking. So please think about any questions you have. We can bring back the slide. We can go through it in more detail. We definitely want to make it a value add, but the whole narrative around all of it is planning is involved. So if you read an article or you learn from a friend that you want to do vertical style content, you have to plan ahead, like who will do it, how you should do it, when you should do it, where you should do it. Same goes with the collaborations. It takes months of planning. And same goes with innovations. The beauty about CPG and beverage brands is that there's usually an innovation pipeline. And before it's already done and maybe like showing up on Sprout shelves, you should get ahead of how do we want to talk about it? Who do we want to talk about it to? Why did we bring it into this world? And again, that could probably start before you even print labels, and certainly well before it's an actual product ready for sale. So just keep that in mind. So I realized as I did this that we put Aisle up top here, but I want to say that a lot of what I'm about to talk about, whether it's Aisle or Visor or WeStock or our card or Social Nature or what have you, there's a lot of platforms that are new and unique specifically to this, like Aisle, or OGs that have had other amazing tech products like WeStock and Social Nature that are now also getting into this game, which is essentially supporting retail velocity and using tools to get people aware, considering, and trying your product. One thing we really like about Aisle is that it's sort of like very simple sort of mousetrap to use, but it only really works if you use it well. And what you're essentially doing is offering a product for either free or a BOGO, which we have seen the only ones that actually really work when it comes to this. We don't really see 30% discount, dollar off really work, even though a lot of brands try to do that, where you're essentially like trying to target the people that you think will buy your product, and then you're giving them the opportunity to buy that product in store, ideally for free. The beauty is it's not a coupon, it's a full price turn at retail, which in the end of the day, above and beyond likes and reach and comments and all the other social media metrics, the name of the game with CPG and beverage brands, like the real KPI is retail velocity, product moving off shelves. And when you're able to do it at full price with the retailer, you're massaging an increased relationship with them. And then hopefully everyone thinks their baby's the cutest in CPG and beverage. Hopefully people tried your product and they liked it and they want to come back. And so now you have the opportunity to market to them through ongoing secondary offers, driving a second visit, maybe with a step down, a different discount, a different SKU, whatever it might be. And you're bringing them into your funnel through that first time, quote unquote, purchase at store, which really has a big ancillary benefit for the brand. What we have found is really highlighting two types of content. Again, content planning around this in-store journey. So literally, like corn, are you in the frozen aisle? Are you in the bread aisle? Are you in the deli section? Are you outer store, inner store? If you have different SKUs or a new innovation, again, planning. If your original SKU unit was in condiments, but now your new SKU unit is in the frozen aisle, you have to educate the consumer. So the in-store journey, where to find your product, and then really talking about the offer, like stylized content, like a really memorable piece here on the right, Rudy's, buy one, get one free, a motion graphic, really educating a person on what the offer is. And those two really provide a nice 1-2 punch for the awareness around using one of these platforms to turn a full price turn at retail. We really recommend that you're using this type of program along with retail media. So whether you're using Instacart for cross retailer or specific to retailer platforms, you're getting a nice 1-2 punch. You're going where people are shopping and considering, and then you're also using social tools to get in front of people that are your target consumer and might not necessarily know your product is one that they need to have. But when you offer a free product or a BOGO, you're incentivizing that first visit and moving them along the journey for lifetime value.
Cool. And then I'm going to wrap us up with TikTok's paid platform and where we've seen that kind of move over the past year, but especially right now. So tapping into TikTok's paid efforts, you have both Spark and dark ads. Things have definitely moved away when TikTok first launched of needing to post high volume, episodic facing camera content, which is great for everyone on this call. We are now suggesting lower volume and a commitment to both Spark and dark ads to guarantee views to a targeted audience. So on the right-hand side, you'll see one of our clients harvest snaps. And as an outsider, you might think that they're having some duds and then going viral here and there, which it definitely looked like around a year ago. But the reality is that the ones with the significant views are being promoted with money behind it as a Spark ad. So while TikTok is mainly focused on the native looking content, UGC stylized is another content style that we've seen success when it comes to dark ads. So content that won't show up on your feed, but is running as a campaign on the back end. It's a great feed disruptor as you're scrolling, catching the attention of an audience instantly. So having important information front loaded, such as logos, retailer callouts, promos, ensures that your audience is getting all important information instantly without having to spend too much time on that ad. And UGC native content will always be a go-to for TikTok. So using an engaging piece of UGC as a dark ad means that you can capture your audience more naturally and take them through the journey that they'd experience shopping for the product and brand. And on the left-hand side, we just show a stylized TikTok dark ad, the spend that went behind it and the insights there compared to a UGC ad on the right-hand side. So those are just like kind of the key differences when it comes to TikTok becoming a pay-to-play platform and how you have options to kind of similar to Meta boost your content that lives on your feed and then run campaigns on the back end, which would be considered a dark ad.
And Sarah, I just think we had a question. What's the difference between Spark and dark ads? I feel like it's a good idea to just tackle that right now.
Yeah, I think I sort of just answered it, but Spark ad is boosting something similar to a Meta post where you're posting it on your feed and then you're putting a small amount of money behind it to give it that boost to that targeted audience. It's something that's living on your feed, whereas a dark ad is really set up as a campaign and it's not something that's living on your feed and it's really set up on the back end and you have the opportunity to run stylized content and run it kind of like campaign style.
And an added bonus to that, I think it was Olivia that asked the question, is prior to that, as the ads platform was developing and then it started with Spark ads, a lot of what you saw on TikTok were native vertical videos done with an iPhone. So you didn't really have a place for like the stylized 3D animation or 2D animation that, that we make here at Sircle and that other, creators and brands are putting out into the ether. Like that just didn't happen on TikTok. But that's like case in point why it's important to keep up with the now. As the TikTok platform evolved, you started to see not in your feed, so not the posts that you were doing day to day, but really like stylized great ads from CPG and beverage brands. You started seeing them everywhere. And this was just doing them dark and running them as an ad, like a really great billboard for like who you are, why it matters, where to find you. And so that change and the use of the ads platform changed the thinking around the content that can work on TikTok. And so right now, brands should be doing a little bit of both. We have conversations still where we're like, hey, what about the TikTok content? The TikTok content is just iPhones, right? You can't do the other stuff. And it's just not really true anymore, right? There is a definite space, and part of your ads philosophy should be using some of those stylized ads. So I see some questions coming in, which is awesome. Let's just go to the summary slide. I'll quickly run through them. You can read them, but I'll say it's thinking vertical format first across all platforms. I also think that Day Trading Attention is Gary Vaynerchuk's book that just came out. Whether you like him or not, he is definitely sort of, I would say, sort of the top most knowledgeable person in the social, him and his agency VaynerMedia in the space. And so they talk a lot about the TikTokification of social media. All of the platforms, every social platform that you're on now is much more about interest-based content than social-based content. They're almost not social networks as much anymore. They're interest-based networks. So when you think about your planning of your content, you're thinking value. I exist because my bar is the best. It's the best because of these ingredients. It can be used in these lifetime situations, and you should leverage those. So it's like thinking about the vertical format for your content. Second, just planning it out, especially around new innovations. You probably have them coming, just plan early. Lean into collaborations with other brands. I posted on LinkedIn about one that we did earlier this week for our client Amy Lou Foods, which was great. Supporting retail velocity above all else, and really leveraging TikTok ads more than you are now, and riding the wave as they continue to evolve their platform. We could probably go off the slides for a moment while we answer questions. I don't know if anyone's on camera, but Lily, it just might be like more conversational. But let's jump in. I did see, I think Aaron Costa, I think I know that name. We've worked together in the past. I appreciate the Sircle Media shout out. So Aaron's basically asking like, if you want to truly move the needle at a specific retailer, what are the best options? I see your recommendation is to do all SKUs to all retailers, but that's harder to see if a promotion specific lift is spread, if it's spread nationally. So what we're saying is the idea is you want to have as little friction as possible. We just did a campaign for Ithaca Hummus, right? So it first started as, hey, maybe I would want to support my SKU. He has a salsa SKU. If you know that brand, he's a hummus brand. He's launched salsa. So already it's a different condiment or a different dip. And now he also was going to maybe just support, I think, Wegmans. But it was going into Cinco de Mayo, and he's like, screw it. Like, I don't really care. I'm a refrigerated brand. I don't have a D2C business. Like, I'll go to any retailer salsa is in, and I'm not looking for like geo-fencing or A/B testing or control grouping. I just want to move salsa units, because all the buyers who bought my salsa because they love my hummus, I need to prove to them that the salsa moves too. And I think once people try salsa, they're going to come back, and the product is delicious. So I highly recommend trying it. And so there it was limited. It was like salsa, all these retailers. But Aaron, for sure, as long as there's enough of a footprint that you can consummate the sale, like actually achieve the desired goal, you can limit that. So what we recommend not doing is, you know, this product only at Giant Eagle. Because if I get your product and I don't shop, if I get your ad and I don't shop at Giant Eagle, or I don't live near a Giant Eagle, like it's like doesn't have any value to me. So we typically like at least like 1,000 store count. So that's hard to make up. Like just all of Sprouts or all of Publix is about half of that. So if you want to get that kind of a footprint, you want to have more retailers, but 1,500 Kroger, 2,000 Walmart, like you could just do that one retailer. Or even in that kind of store count, if you're in 3,000 Krogers, but you want to get just 1,000 in like a specific area, as long as you have enough store count, then you can definitely go retailer specific and offer specific, especially if you want to just move a very specific initiative. And I think, you know, all the platforms allow you to get a little bit more narrowly targeted. Just don't go so narrow that you decrease your chance of success. CPM strike me as very high for packaged food margins. I guess that's not a question, that's more of a statement. So I don't really know how to, there's no answer to it. You want to address that, Sarah, or you want me to?
I was just going to say, when looking at like CPM averages, we look at them within the CPG industry, food and beverage. So those don't strike us as being super high. Those are actually like right on par for what we're seeing. But just an interesting, I guess, like thought that you had. But they aren't high compared to what we're seeing in the industry and what we're seeing our clients see.
The next question is about Instagram or TikTok ads. We as an agency are not a performance agency. We don't do really much D2C work. We're really with emerging, high growth, or even later stage CPG and beverage brands that are, disproportionately sold in retail stores. So that's why a lot of this is around retail velocity support. As far as conversions on the website, we've seen a mix. I would say gun to head, Instagram ads have historically performed better. But now with integrating with TikTok Shop, I don't know much about your tableware brand when we only really do CPG, food and beverage. But TikTok Shop is really becoming a beast on its own. I was there with Molly, our social strategist. I was at TikTok HQ in New York last week, meeting with their TikTok Shop team. They can fulfill for you. They can really integrate with you. They can, leverage their platform with creators. So I wouldn't necessarily just be like, it's only Instagram or TikTok. I would definitely double click on Shop and its ability to maybe help facilitate the sale journey on your domain. Should you have a certain amount of following before buying ads? Go for it.
I was going to say, you shouldn't consider your followers at all. It should be really based on like the budget that you have. Like, do you have a consistent amount of money that you can spend against ads? We look at followers as a vanity metric. It really doesn't mean much. And followers will come as you evolve your social strategy, but it's not something where they're correlated whatsoever.
Yeah, and I would say just in terms of that, this is something I've been saying forever, but it's definitely way more true now. All of the platforms, like I said, have moved to interest-based, not social-based. Even people that use Instagram, most of the time you're probably in stories. A lot of time you're seeing ads and you're exploring and you're finding new things. Maybe you're dabbling in other things like YouTube Shorts, which isn't really a follower platform. TikTok's never really been a follower platform. I think the hard part people get over is that, because Facebook and Instagram were about followers, even though they weren't as much as people thought, even when they were at its height, it's hard for them to switch. Like they're always like, I thought it was always about followers, right? Followers are so key. Or my retail buyer is always asking me about followers. And yet most brands that are under 10 million in revenue are looking for new eyeballs. It's like, hey, we're expanding. And at that sort of like 5 to 10 or 10 to 20, that means you now have gotten over a hump where you're like expanding out of your home region. So as such, it's highly unlikely that any of those followers lived in your new frontiers. And if you were trying to get new eyeballs on your content, you were never aggregating followers to speak to them. So we spend no time, no effort, no money for any of our clients targeting followers ever. In fact, we will sometimes create ads and make sure that we do not include any followers because we're looking for new eyeballs for whatever the products are that we're selling. So it's really, really important that you're thinking about it that way. So that's an added bow on top of Sarah's answer to, you don't need a follower count if you just want to get ad units on TikTok with your great beverage or your great bar or your great protein powder, whatever it is, in front of eyeballs so that they consider you and hopefully buy from you in store or even online. How do you recommend leveraging influencers to support retail velocity?
I would recommend getting super targeted. So let's say you're trying to boost retail velocity at Whole Foods in the Northeast. I would gift a ton of nano influencers your product that live around that area based on zip code and city that you've seen on their platform, and gift them product in exchange for hopefully a story and kind of have that communication and dialogue with them. Like, we'd love to send you some of our product in exchange for a post. And usually you'll get that, especially in that like nano smaller following range. And then with a small amount of budget, we'd recommend kind of contracting 2 to 3 paid influencers within that area and kind of laying out what it is that you want them to do. Ideally go in store, shoot content of you finding product on shelf where you can find it in store, cross-sharing it to, as ideally, obviously their first platform of choice. So if they're following and engagement is mostly living on Instagram, you want Instagram first, but we'd love for you to cross-post it on TikTok and YouTube Shorts just to see what happens on other platforms. But being able to work with influencers that are super targeted in the area that you're trying to drive velocity and have them create content that you really want to to get out there with a more influential audience. Sorry, I'm just seeing another question. If that nano targeting, what are some of the best resources? I can get back to that one right after this. But yeah, we would say a mix of like smaller gifting, so nano influencer gifting, in addition to some paid partnerships that have a little bit higher engagement. You're actually scripting, not scripting out, but sort of like directing them in exactly what you want them to say because they're contracted with the brand. So rather than nano, you're hoping for the best, you're hoping they like your product and they give you a shout out. When it comes to a paid partnership, you can really make sure that they're signing a contract with you, that they're going to do X, Y, and Z. And then when it comes to the actual partnership and the contract, we'd recommend longer term partnerships that come off as super authentic, so that they're not just posting it one and done and it feels very inauthentic, like they just got paid for this. Maybe you send them the product and you don't work with them for until a month later, so that they've actually tried it, they've integrated it into their daily lifestyle, they know they like it, they like their bar before their workout, and then maybe they've like tested a recipe with it, so that when they do get into that 3-month partnership with you, it comes off as super authentic. So that would just be like a general starting point when it comes to influencer.
Yeah, and I just think with nano targeting, I think that the beauty is, and assuming just from my experience with Naturally and maybe some of the brands on here, like if you are a sub 10 or sub $5 million brand, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's blocking and tackling and hand-to-hand combat, but the good news is that works better now than it did 5 years ago. So, you know, so what you don't want to do is like not be on social, meaning some brands are putting out content, but they're not in their comments. Which comments are the gold. Community management to me is the most important part of social media. Second is understanding that, you know, people might be commenting about your brand, or you might be competing with other brands, or you maybe did an exercise that the consumer that eats my brand also eats or drinks these brands. And so I would go into the feeds of those brands. Sorry, my dog is barking, so don't mind me letting her out. I would go into the feeds of those brands and I would make sure that you are looking at some of the influencers that maybe they're working with, right? So sometimes they're working with influencers, or they're working, you know, somebody with 1,000 followers that doesn't even necessarily put them out there, themselves out there as an influencer, but, you know, they live in South Florida and you're in Publix and they're talking about how a product changed their lives. That's a great one-to-one from the founder or from whoever's doing marketing and being like, hey, Sarah, I saw that you picked up X at Publix. If you like X, you will like Y. I want to get some product in your hand. And if you plan ahead, that's where you could use aisle. Instead, it's funny, we've spoken to a bunch of brands that are like, I don't want to use aisle or any of those things. I don't think they work. I don't, you know, it's fake velocity. It doesn't make any sense. And so I'm not going to do it. I don't want to spend the money. Yet they're gifting people all over the country, even some brands with frozen or refrigerated products. So in order to do that, they're spending $50, $100, whereas you could get that into a person's hands by saying, hey, we would like the next time you go to Publix, pick up some of our product on us and we will reimburse you. You can use Advisor or you can do that on your own. You could just Venmo them back or PayPal them back. And now you've facilitated a full price turn at retail. You gifted maybe a nano influencer or just somebody with a following in a local area. And you can do that in Cleveland or Texas or Iowa, doesn't matter. And then you're getting them to facilitate a conversation and then leverage some of their friends. So maybe pay it forward. Hey, Sarah, it was great working with you. If you had one friend that came to mind that should also try my product, who would it be? And that's a great way to, from the bottom up for free, get nano influencers. All that being said, there's platforms out there. We use a SaaS platform called Julius, which allows you to get influencers of all sizes on any platforms that you can target. And there's Julius, there's Grin, there's Aspire, there's other platforms that you can use to communicate with influencers and find influencers. And so you might want to look into that if you're working with an agency, see if they have a SaaS platform, maybe experiment on a SaaS platform. Some of these programs even have a 30-day trial. I'm not supposed to say this, but maybe you do a 30-day trial and you just grab a bunch of local names and then you're like, you know what, this wasn't a great program for me, but now you have a handful of names. Again, you're not looking for thousands of names. You might just be looking for a small group of names that can start the snowball effect to get in front of more nano influencers.
I would also say just like take advantage of TikTok and Instagram's SEO, like search, let's say you have like a high protein bar, search high protein recipes. Like you're bound to find tons of smaller creators that you can build into your nano pool.
Yeah, and I think a lot of going back to sort of like setting it and forgetting it, or, you know, hiring an intern, or like your PR firm's doing your social or whatever it is. now is not the time to like set it and outsource. Now is the time to be disciplined about how much time you spend on your social and do it maybe yourself, or use a great social media manager internally, or use an agency. And in that, you're doing what sort of Sarah just called like proactive community management. So if you're spending time on TikTok and you're querying for people talking about maybe your products or just maybe the category your product is in, spending some time, 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week adds up, and you start having one-to-one conversations with those people, and you really facilitate a dialogue, which can help you expand. And it's just time, but it's time well spent, I think, for an early stage CPG brand. The influencer SaaS platform, Namrata, I think is your name, that I mentioned, was Julius. Platforms like Julius and Grin are expensive. It's a SaaS platform contract. So like our clients just use our Julius platform so that they save that and they actually put it towards working dollars. But there's a number. If you just look up influencer SaaS platforms or influencer networks, there's definitely some cheaper ones. And you might not need the full 360 robust one. You might need a more like very like dedicated one that you can reach out to. So that's just a Google search and just, looking at some.
I was just gonna go off that and just say, like, when I first started here in 2018, we didn't have a platform. Like, we didn't have as big of a like resources, and how we started was just like manual search. So I think that still stands true, that it works, and you're able to kind of like find those types of influencers within just like proactively searching.
Totally. And I think it's important that if you care about understanding social and running social for your brands, like when I started this agency in 2012, like we would meet with brands and they all thought social media was a farce. They were like, yeah, it's a fad, or it's all about SEO these days, or my niece is doing our social. But fast forward to now, like every sales call I get onto, they're like, we understand that social media is like our only lever. But what are they doing? They're outsourcing it or ignoring it. So I just encourage any marketing lead, founder, anybody interested in this beyond like a presentation like today. If you're on this call, theoretically, you should be interested in social networks for the now. You got to spend some time natively on the platforms. And I also say, don't go so smart, you go stupid. So I'd say two things. One, you should be on TikTok. You can't say, well, I don't believe in TikTok, but I do believe it's important for brands. Like those don't connect. And then if you are on it, which I hopefully you guys are, don't disconnect your marketing brain with your human persona. And I think a lot of brands do that. They're like, oh, we wouldn't do that on TikTok. But then when they're on TikTok, they're seeing a way that certain people are acting and they're not matched. So it's very important that you're using it and seeing what you're seeing as a consumer by spending 20 minutes, 10 minutes a day. And that will give you light bulb moments of like, oh, wow, I did not even realize that people are using it this way. So then I'm going to double down from a marketing point of view to speak to them in the way that people are using the platform now. Hopefully that makes sense. I would also say, like on Instagram, like people don't like or comment or even follow like they used to. Adam Mosseri, who runs Instagram, is saying it's really happening in the stories. Yet we still spend the lion's share of our time with our clients on the feed. Yet most of the activities in the stories. So you want to have a strategy and a content messaging plan commensurate with current ecosystem, not former ecosystem. So just keep that in mind. Do you think the content should be the same for Instagram and TikTok, or should each platform have their own personality? I'll start this, but I'm sure you'll have some thoughts on this, Sarah. It's not really about personality. Like your brand is your personality. What is your story? What is your message? And I don't think as much as like 18 months ago that they were like these distinctly different things, where it's like you only do this on Instagram and you only do that on TikTok. That has melded a little bit more. What really works, to Sarah's point in the beginning, was who are you? We are a high protein bar with lion's mane and ashwagandha. I'm just making it up and thinking about IQ bar. Okay, and why is it different? Well, we don't have gums and craft and all the stuff that all these other people do. And how can I use it? It's great for a hike. It's great to chop up. It's great to get to your kid, whatever it is. And then where can I find it? You can find it at Publix. You can find it at Costco. You can find it. It's like those story messages are like tried and true marketing messages. And those work with your personality overlaid on them on any of these platforms. But with TikTok, you have an ability of still having some viral moments. There still are some native to platform moments on TikTok. So I don't know if you want to talk to that a little bit, Sarah.
I was gonna say exactly that. Like a lot of it has merged to be able to cross-post content to both platforms. But when it comes to TikTok, there are opportunities to jump on trending recipes, trending memes, trending sounds, like just unique to the platform. And it always starts with TikTok. And sometimes you'll see that trend like cross over to Instagram weeks later. But there are opportunities to kind of be faster on the platform for TikTok, which is why at Sircle we have social media managers managing the account and jumping on those trends weekly. And we have our social strategist, Molly, sending out emails weekly, talking about the trending recipes of the week because they literally change weekly. Maybe a recipe that's come back from weeks prior, like the yogurt bark is really hot right now, and that was like hot and now it's hot again. So like, how can we jump on that again, or how can we reshare that content? The trending sounds of the week for business accounts. So there are a lot of opportunities that are unique to TikTok, I would say, and you have to really be in the platform to be able to jump on them because it turns over weekly.
Yeah, if you want to see like what is it used to be like when I got into marketing many years ago, it used to be like a lot of the things would start on the coast, the California and the New York, and then make their way over time into the middle of the country. And I'm saying this in the trustry of the naturally New York scene, since we're like the early ones. It's similar to TikTok and Instagram right now. I think the TikTok trends and content will make their way to Instagram. But if you want to sort of like know what's coming, newer trends, find them faster and earlier, it's probably spending discovery time on TikTok, but then not being scared to say, oh, that idea could now work on Instagram, whereas maybe a year or a year and a half ago, that wasn't the case. Right now, those can be cross-pollinated across those platforms.
Mhm.
How often do you recommend boosting or whitelisting for brands, Sarah?
Anytime you post. So essentially we're seeing like organic reach just on the decline. Occasionally we'll post and wait like a day or a few hours, but you really don't see numbers go up so often. Like occasionally you'll see that virality, or you'll see a post like organically do really well, whether it's the hashtags, the SEO you use, and that's great. But we do want to make sure that a targeted group of eyeballs are seeing the content that we're putting out there. So we recommend putting a minimal amount of spend behind every single post that we're putting out there, unless it doesn't warrant it. For example, if it's like a UGC that we didn't get approval to be able to boost, but there's really not many instances where we aren't able to boost something, or we wouldn't
And
recommend it.
I would just add, and not to contradict what Sarah said, like really, especially if you're an earlier stage brand that's like, well, I can't afford to do it. Things that are going to put your product front and center with like your logo for awareness, consideration, and trial at retail. So like they see your logo, it's an impression. Things that talk about the benefit and usage case, like describe the product, and then maybe retailer support, like find us at Walmart. I think those are good. I think if it's a personality post, like, hey, here's like behind the scenes at our warehouse, or here's our founder out in the farm collecting the product that's going to go in our granola or whatever it is. Those might be a little bit more once somebody knows about your brand, right? Like, and I'm thinking about Grandy Organics, which is a client that Sarah works on.
I was going to say for that type of content, I would boost it to like their main audience, like they're in Maine, they're based in Maine. Everyone in Maine kind of knows Grandy Organic. So I'd probably boost it to an audience that would really resonate with that versus like nationwide, because people outside of Maine won't really care.
Right. So it's just thinking about just be human. Like if somebody has heard of us or knows about us or would be passionate about Maine, like we're passionate about Maine, like let's talk to that because they're going to be part of it. But like I might not care if I live in New Mexico that you do that if I've never heard of your brand before. But I might care that you're the #1 selling organic granola in the country, or if you like Purely Elizabeth, you would love Grandy Organics. Like, so just understanding like why does your brand exist? How do you want to tell that story? And then where do you want to tell that story? And the ones that are around who you are, why it's different, why it matters, where you can find it, those would be I would trump with dollars to support it with paid versus others. How can a foreign brand target the US algorithm on TikTok and Instagram?
I guess my question would be, is the brand posting in English, the foreign brand? I feel like it depends on how they're kind of putting themselves out into the world. Oh,
So yes.
they are. I would just build audiences that are US based, and also maybe make like a post that's pinned to the top that you want your users to see when they land on the page, that's very like targeted towards the US. I don't know, Adam, if you have anything else.
Yeah, I mean, I think like that's just leveraging paid So you're not gaming the algorithm, you're using paid. So you're saying, I want to target people in the US who shop at Walmart, who also like whatever, like build your audiences and let it go. And that's kind of what I'm saying is like that the paid platform will target whoever you tell it to target.
I would
So if you're
also
an
say
international,
sorry, the only other thing that just came to my brain was creating like a US specific account. If you do have like a pretty foundational foreign like user base, but you want to create like a US branch, essentially. I know one of the brands on here we actually did that with, but you could build out like a specific US account, kind of build that from the ground up as an option as well.
that's right. And we work with a number of brands that are huge internationally, whether it's in Europe or Australia. And then we run their US presence. So to Sarah's point, a lot of times we just created new US based platforms and we're feeding that. And again, I remember, Sarah, certainly when you started here a few years ago, we'd always be like, never dilute your audience, always keep it in one space because you don't want to dilute your message. And everyone wanted followers. So you don't want to have 70 followers, 1,000 followers here and 700 here. So keep it tight. But that's changed. And so since you're not gaming for followers, you look for interest based, like you can make a strong argument to have a US based one starting from scratch where you're really speaking to that US audience a little bit more. So somebody asked about like, how do you structure your team internally to work with an agency? So that's a great question. So a lot of times I would say brands 5 million in revenue or below, it's a lot of times they're hiring Sircle or someone. So it's in lieu of, it's not in addition to, just financially. So that makes it harder for us, right? Because it's usually not ideal for us to work with a founder because founders are very precious about their brand, and that can get sticky. Or you get one marketing person, and I would say more often than not, they're a senior person, not a junior person. So I think they're looking at us like we're going to fill community management, day-to-day social combat, and content creation. And then we need either a brand manager or a director of marketing that's working with you. And that director of marketing, instead of getting 5 full-time employees, they just get Sircle to fill 5 full-time employees. But to answer your question, like the spirit of what you're asking, the royal flush for us is like a brand manager who's senior enough that they have the ear of the founder. They actually been around a little bit. They kind of know what they're doing. They don't even have to be social experts because we do that, but they understand brand and channel and messaging and the things that need to get done. And then they can liaise with the senior people, but they're also junior enough to get in the weeds with us. So ideally, it would be like a brand manager, associate brand manager type person with us. And if we ever needed additional content for like creators and things like that, you can use influencers or you can just use creators on platforms, not influencers. But we also bring, we have 61 full-time employees at Sircle, usually 10 to 12 interns at any time. So we'll also have people all around the country from as far as New York to Hawaii that can go into retailers wherever they are, grab content, tell that story. And so that's how we fill it. So brands don't need it. But I think brands do need those types of people if they don't have access to an agency like ours that can make local feet on the ground content in retailers. So I think that's really important. So how many regions should you target in paid ads? Example, New York City and LA.
I would say to set up like a broad audience first, which will hit like all of US based. And I would recommend using the Advantage Plus optimization that will really like the algorithm will decide if they're going to target to New York City, to LA, to other states within. And then within that is like your baseline, your super broad audience. You can build out like a New York City health and wellness audience, in LA, like however many other ones that you want to compare that against. But when it comes to like number of regions you can target, it's really as many as you want. And then depending on where your focus is or your niches, I would just like compare against that. Like what are your CPMs looking like? What's the reach? What's the engagement? And build out as many as you want and layer in that interest in those regions.
I would say if you're very early stage, if you're sub $1 million in revenue, which a lot of brands obviously are that are just starting out, you're not going to have a lot of dollars at your disposal. So you might just want to go hyper local. So whatever your local backyard is, like even before you have a distributor, you might be in 12 stores in New York. And so I would zip code target, Brooklyn, New York. Like I would filter it so that if Adam or Sarah sees it, they even have a chance to maybe getting it when they go into their local natural grocer and being like, oh my God, I just saw an ad for that. So I would say like always trying to facilitate retail velocity support, even with a small footprint, and then facilitating a sale possibility if somebody was in that market. So if Sarah saw you and she lives in New Jersey, and you're only in New York, it's just a little bit of a friction step because she might never be in New York, so never have that chance. Whereas if you zip code targeted me in Manhattan, you have a chance that when I go for lunch after this call, I might buy your beverage. So just keeping that in mind. So what format receives the most visibility on Instagram? Reels, photo carousel, stories? Suggestions on how best to use each.
I would say reels and stories are at the top. And then carousels, you can just get creative with how you best use a carousel, but obviously everything's moving to vertical video content, like we said. So definitely tapping into reels. They're continuing to be kind of at the top. And then stories, we always say, are like a platform in and of themselves. Everything lives at the top. When you first get to your feed, you're clicking through stories. You have opportunities to engage with your audience, to ask questions, reshare anything that you're already sharing in your feed. So there's just a lot of opportunity when it comes to stories, and it is still vertical content. So again, you can reshare all that content over to stories as well and just dive deeper with your audience. When it comes to carousels, we do see that it just offers like an opportunity to stay longer on that one post because you're swiping through, you're spending more time there, you can engage with it. And we also have learned that carousels get served to consumers more than once. So you might have seen before when scrolling through, you'll see a carousel again, and maybe it starts on the second slide. It's just something interesting that Instagram does. So we do recommend carousels for those various reasons. And it's definitely part of when we're putting together a strategy recommendation, one of the #1 types of content that we recommend.
And I would say, I always say this, like whenever I speak publicly and things like this, like nothing is so binary. So the takeaway is not like never do a carousel or a static post ever again, because things change. I would follow Adam Mosseri. I would follow thought influencers that you think are useful in the space. It could be me, it could be somebody else, whoever, Leah Haberman. Like just follow some people. Social media today, I get that daily. Some people get it weekly. You can choose your cadence. It just comes in your inbox. Sort of just tells you what's going on in the market. And as you start to see any of them talking about where they're putting their time and attention, lean into that. So Adam Mosseri has been an amazing leader, talking very openly. He does facing camera, very real about what he's seeing and where things are going. Listen to him; he knows. So just follow where that trend is going. But going back to just like now is a good time to be small. If you don't have the luxury, time, or dollars to be investing in great studio content and elaborate photo shoots, whatever, then you can lean more into just vertical videos, face in camera or not, just a little bit more grainy, and use that. And I think generally speaking, if that's what you had to choose, vertical videos that you can use as reels or stories or TikTok or YouTube shorts, you're just going to get more bang for your buck, which I think is really important when you're early and small. So there was a lot of news about press about TikTok at risk of being shut down. I hadn't heard anything about that. I don't know what you're talking about. And curious to hear your thoughts and point of view on TikTok Shop. I'll take this one quickly. It's obviously big news. We're also in a election year. The government came out and said that they're going to force a sale. It's being fought. I'm not going to go into the details, and I'm happy to provide. We have Molly on our team is doing weekly insights on this for our team. So we can give you like up-to-date news on where this stands. But at the moment, it's not going anywhere. It's a long tail of like when this might get banned or forced into a sale or change. So an early stage brand doesn't need to make changes into their TikTok philosophy right now. Just keep an eye on it. It's not even just social media news. It's in mainstream news. Just keep an eye on where it's going and reading between the lines. Like they don't want the Chinese government having access to data in the US. They're using it as a campaign vehicle. And, it's a lot of things need to happen before it's going to go away. I mentioned Shop earlier. I'm just saying like Shop is really evolving into a very attractive thing. And if you have something that is inclined to be purchased, not necessarily a frozen product, but like low weight, easy to ship, D2C type things, you could make quite a bit of progress on TikTok Shop, even if Shopify is not like a beast of a platform for you. And there's a lot of like free tools. You can just Google TikTok Shop setup, TikTok Shop strategies, and it's all self-serve. Like they want you to go on and set yourself up and try it a little bit. It's certainly worth entertaining if you fall into that category. Anything to add there, Sarah?
No, I agree with that. I feel like it's like we know all this is going on in the back end and we're keeping tabs on it, but it doesn't dismiss wanting to be like on TikTok Shop and taking advantage of where it's at right now.
For sure. what is the best content for LinkedIn if we want to target category managers? So, I've been posting at least once a day daily on LinkedIn for 4 years. It's a tremendous platform with also insane organic reach, and you really can target with great thought leadership messaging, whatever it might be. If you want to target category managers, like really thinking about like what do category managers care about, and like what are they looking to talk about, and are you a thought leader? Like what would you put in your deck? I see all these decks that are like, the global beverage industry is a $17 trillion industry, and Coca-Cola owns 80-90% of it. And even if we get 1% of it, yada, 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 like take that a little bit more micro. If I'm a category manager and I'm thinking about putting you on my shelf, why do I want to put you, if I already have Olipop and I already have Poppy, why your soda? People are going to look at it from this point of view or that point of view, and that, it's a good unit economics or whatever it might be. Like there's a lot that can go into the why for a category manager. And I would just continue putting that thought leadership out there. So if you're like, if I could just get in an elevator with my category manager of Whole Foods, what would I say to him or her? And then just start putting that out on LinkedIn consistently. And don't worry if you get 3 likes, 2 comments, 1 share, it doesn't matter. Just keep putting it out. Because also the LinkedIn algorithm is weird. 2 weeks ago, everything I put out had 5,000 to 10,000 impressions. This last week, I put out similar type of content that usually crushes. I had 3 posts out of my 7 that had under 1,000 impressions. It's very random and weird. Don't spend a lot of time thinking about how to game it. Just thinking about putting out consistent content that might matter to the people that you want to talk to. What's the, I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead. What is the name again of the other Adam person? It's Adam Mosseri. I think it's Mosseri. And just look up head of Instagram and you'll find him. Follow his Instagram and just listen to his wisdom on where the platform's at. It's coming from the horse's mouth. Have you noticed any general trends, whether stylized, produced video content or social first video content performs better on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube Shorts? I'll take this one quick. So YouTube Shorts, definitely more vertical style UGC. Ideally utility content, how to make a smoothie using your product, how to use, how to prepare, educational content. On the other, native to the platform on TikTok, it's vertical, social first, but the ads, like Sarah mentioned, stylized, produced content. Instagram, a mixed bag. I think like 2 years ago, everyone wanted to look like Poppy and be stylized and beautiful, and then everyone wanted just UGC. It's not so binary. I think you need a mix of both. And when Sarah's team runs tests sometimes, we're surprised. Sometimes the UGC social first works. Sometimes it's a dud and the stylized works. It really depends on a lot of factors. So there really is no binary answer other than for TikTok and YouTube native, I would say social first vertical videos outperform the over stylized stuff. Thanks, Adrian, for sharing all that. TikTok shop, are we able to sell perishable items on there? Thanks, Sarah. And again, a lot of the TikTok shop, like they are flooding the market with info. So don't be shy, Google search, or just go into TikTok shop and use this link that Sarah just shared and get into it. Also, one huge overlooked thing in CPG, this is such an amazing, like everyone's looking for everyone to win, everyone's high-fiving environment. I think so much so that people don't ask for the ask. So don't be shy about asking somebody who's a little further along than you, or somebody in the National New York network that is where you want to be in 3 years. How are you using TikTok Shop? And when they will probably give you the answer. Like, I don't think you're going to get a lot of like, hell no, I'm not sharing, I'm competing with you. And even if you got it on your first try, keep asking. I'd say 50 to 75% are going to be like, yeah, here's our info. Here's what we do. Take a look, whatever. So just ask, and you could sort of shorten the learning curve. Make sure it's something very similar to your product and not totally different category or a different type of product. How different would you say marketing CPG is from the fresh produce category? Are the lessons the same or radically different? You want to take that one, Sarah, or me?
Sorry, I was just typing to another question in here around budget.
No problem, I'll answer it. So I think similar in the sense that like it's awareness, consideration, and trial at retail. One might be in the fresh area, and one might be in the middle of the store. So I think in the sense of that is like, here's who we are and here's why it matters and here's where to get it is the same. But you don't have a lot of the levers that are consistent like D2C business or Amazon. Obviously, certain parts of Amazon can do it. But if you're really trying to get people that are going and getting like fresh, perishable products, it's even more so a retail velocity support play. So again, I think using nano influencers, friends and family, college interns, any creator that you can go and grab that product in store and talk about using it. I would say a key one actually, as I'm thinking about it, recipe content. So, hey, I just went over to Whole Foods and I picked up this kale, beets, anything perishable, and I am making this for my lunch or for my daughter or for my dad or for whatever it is. Like, this is what I'm doing. Great utility content. And if you do a recipe and your product is the hero of the recipe, I think when you start to see saves and shares, it's highly likely that if we did one for Good Culture cottage cheese, it's one of our clients, I think most people that see, so it's a great example. The trend, there's all these cottage cheeses have been having a moment for the last 18 months. And it's been an unsexy category, but now it's hot. And I'd say Good Culture is probably best in class. There's obviously a lot of brands, store brands, what have you, but Good Culture is out there in the refrigerated aisle, right, in store. And so if you do recipes using Good Culture, I think people are going to go and 75% of the time, they're going to buy the Good Culture to not stray from the recipe. So if you had a perishable product, I try to make your product the hero of as many recipes as you can, which might facilitate people buying it as the hero. And we probably have, thanks for driving that in there, Sarah. So we probably have one more question. What would be the advice you would give to someone wanting to launch a CPG brand in New York, East Coast as a foreign brand? Where to start? Influencers, presence at events, good website. Again, where are you sold? So if you're a foreign brand, if you landed Wegmans on the East Coast or something else, do it in and around there. Wegmans is a cool one because it's not a huge store count and it's down the mid-Atlantic. So there's a lot that are like mid-Atlantic that are probably cheaper influencers, cheaper, creative and content on ads because not as many people are targeting it as like New York and LA and Chicago. So I would go like hyper local with zip code targeting and really try to leverage local store footprint, regardless of if you're a brand from Europe or Africa or wherever. I would sell the message like why should that matter? Like that's good for you. It's cleaner ingredients, and we're bringing it to the U.S. But then it's just like hyper local messaging, ideally in support of retail, assuming that you're in some retail stores. Yeah, thank you, Sarah. So I think as we wrap up, I can be found, Adam Brown, Sarah Hayden on LinkedIn. We are Sircle Media. That's Sircle with an S, stands for Social Circle. Sircle.me. And we are Sircle Media on all social platforms. Reach out, or if you forgot everything I just said, reach out to Adrian, reach out to Lily. Happy to have any kind of follow-up conversations with any of you that want to go a little bit deeper than today. Thank you for Naturally New York for having us. And thank you for everyone who attended.
Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Sarah.